Welcome to the Race Concepts channel, and we are here to showcase our first Turbo Zen Restomodded project. We are here with a 2005 Maruti Suzuki Zen, which is now turbocharged. The car has been restomodded and given a completely new lease of life. The car puts out 205 horses at the crank, and it's a very quick piece of engineering. Before we get into the details of this car, let's go to a throwback on what the Zen really is. In India, we have a lot of fanboyism around the Maruti Zen, a lot of enthusiasts who appreciate the Zen, and people know them for being a fun little hot hatch. But what really the Zen was, let's get to that. Suzuki introduced this particular version of the Zen, which was a few generations ahead of the Maruti 800 that was sold in India. They were all based on the exact same platform. Now these cars were largely called as K cars in Japan. They were small compact city cars which were meant to be within a few millimeters, and they had to be 660 cc's. So the Maruti 800 was debuted in India in the early 80s. It was called the SS80, and that was called as a Suzuki Alto in Japan and in other various countries. And then the version after the SS80, which was launched in the mid 80s, was again the second generation of the Alto, and then so on. The Alto generations kept going on, and this was the version that they launched in the late 80s and early 90s in Japan. Now this car was again called the Suzuki Alto, but in India Maruti launched this car as the Maruti Zen. The Maruti Zen was launched in India in 1993 alongside the Maruti 800. Now technically the Maruti 800 was replaced by the Zen abroad, but Maruti continued to sell both models alongside. And interestingly, Maruti kept selling all other versions of the Alto, which later became the Alto, which was launched in the early 2000s in India. And then the version after that as well, the facelift. So technically Maruti kept Maruti 800, the Zen, and the first gen Alto and the second gen Alto all together in the manufacturing assembly, while these cars were technically outdated and replaced in the foreign market. So the name Alto came to India in the 2000s when the first generation Alto was launched with the 800cc engine, and then it was launched with the 1.1 liter engine. And then long story short, again Maruti did something very funny where the sales of the Zen was sabotaged by the 1.1 liter Alto, which was very quick, and it was cheaper than the Zen. Maruti's first attempt at launching a premium hatch was the Zen, and it is arguably the first premium hatch in India. Now the cars that were in India before the Zen were cars such as the Sipani Dolphin, the Sipani Montana. These were the sort of hatchbacks that we saw in India, and then a lot of other quirky cars that were imported to India in the previous decades. The Maruti Zen was launched in the year 1993 with a 1 liter carbureted engine producing 50 bhp. Now that was clearly a size bigger than what this car originally was sold as an Alto abroad with a 660cc engine. So definitely we got more power and a larger capacity engine. And in the year 2000, Maruti gave us the 1 liter fuel injected version, which produced 60 horsepower, a very rev happy and a fuel efficient engine. I personally owned a Zen from 2005, and I've lived many years with it, and I know it's a lovely piece of engineering, very quiet, silky smooth, and a wonderful performer. As the years went on, the Zen was the first car that introduced the hot hatch culture into India. Early in the 2000s, a lot of people started swapping the Maruti Esteem power plant into the Zen, and then it became a big favorite in the drag racing circle. It got on to the mainstream racing circle, and then the culture caught on, and this arguably is literally the granddaddy of hatchbacks in India. The Zen from the very beginning came with the lovely G series engine, the G10. It was initially an 8-valve carbureted engine, which later on became a 16-valve single cam fuel injected engine making 60 horsepower. And the engine shares everything in similarity with the G13B that came in the Esteem, which produced 85 bhp, is an exact identical packaging, because the block, the cylinder head and everything externally is the same, it's just the bore and stroke which is different on the inside. Now that makes the 1.3 swap into a 1 liter the most easy and straightforward approach. Now this here is a 1.3 liter swap, which technically is not literally a swap out of an S-Team, but the internals of an S-Team which has gone into it in boring out and stroking out the engine to displace 1.3 liters. Now this is fully forged, it's got forged piston, connecting rod, has a lot of upgrade on the cylinder head and a lot of bits around it, such as a racing clutch, a lightened flywheel, has a revised manifold, short ratio gear, and it has a lot of packaging around the engine to make sure that it holds turbo power. Now what really have we done to this Zen? As I mentioned, this is a 2005 Zen. Now what makes it different to the previous Zen is the whole styling cues. Maruti went ahead and changed the entire front end. They gave it a new bumper, front rear, gave it a new headlight, a whole new treatment on the fender, and a few changes cosmetically here and there to bring back the shelf life of the Zen. The Zen was largely sold intact from 1993 till 2003, a full 10-year span with the exact looking shape, except for the Zen Classic, which came with a very quirky looking, retro looking theme, and of course the lovely Zen Carbon and Steel, which were the two-door classics which were limited in numbers. And we are very happy that we've built one of the wildest cars, the Monster Zen, out of a Zen Carbon. So this here is the standard silhouette of the 2005 Zen, which we've maintained. We've given it absolutely not much of a revision to the body. However, in order to give the car a more muscular approach, because we've gone wider on the wheels, we have a flared out arch which is clearly made out of metal. So it's fused into the fender, the front and the rear. And then of course we have this bonnet vent which helps in extracting the heat out. But everything else is unmistakably the stock lines of the Zen, which makes it look like an absolute sleeper. Now what's really under the hood? Let's find out. Now this really is the heart of the matter. As I said, the 1.3 liter bored and stroked unit with a slightly larger throttle body, and you have a massive Garrett turbo sitting up front here with our custom plumbing, tubing and all of that. With a front mounted intercooler, the AC has been deleted of course because there's no really much of a space to place the whole thing. And we have the old induction system going all the way to the other side of the engine bay. On a stock car, the throttle body sits on this side, and we revised it the other side to get better packaging and manage heat better. And we have a strut bar which braces the apron towers to give the chassis more rigidity. And most of the other aspects of the car we've kept intact in order to maintain street reliability, because this car is going to be used on the street quite a lot, and the whole idea is to keep things simple without complicating any of that. Coming to the driveline of the car has a stage 3 clutch which is good to deliver up to 300 horsepower and put out about 350 Nm of torque. The drive shafts are absolutely stock. We've got a bespoke lightened flywheel which is from the 1.3 liter engine, which is slightly larger than the 1 liter. So that helps give more clamping and of course hold more torque and put the power down to the wheels. Now coming to the braking system, we have our operated custom slotted rotors and pads and lines which improves the stopping power by quite a margin. The suspension, you can see the stance of the car is lowered, and it's just not lowering, it's how well the car is balanced now with our unique coilovers. We were the first ones to develop coilovers for the Zen, because ever since we started the Monster Zen project in the year 2020, we decided to give Zen owners a new lease of life, because there's absolutely no solution except for lowering springs and chopped out dampers, which do not improve the ride and dynamics of the car. People lower the car just to make them look cool, but absolutely ruins the handling and dynamics. Now this is something which is tried, tested, and with 5 years of development, we have revised many iterations of the coilover suspension, and this is our Pro Street version, which has very good damping ability, has adjustability on the camber. We can set the ride height, set the rebound and the preload, and all of which gives the car a lot of dynamic ability. The wheels here are 15-inch compo motive rally wheels, which are very unique. These are quite hard and rare to find, and it's shod on low profile 15-inch tires. So that's the footwork of the car. The car has been finished in a lovely shade of blue, which the owner Gigi Thomas very specifically asked us to do, and the color of the wheel as well is something that is very uniquely matched and shaded. The wheel arches have been painstakingly redone to match the offset of the wheel and also to suit the character of the lines of the car so that it doesn't lose its sleeper appeal. The car is absolutely drop dead gorgeous because of the way it sits, how low it is, and because of its purposeful intent. Now, what does all of this translate to? With a low boost setting of just 7 psi and running on absolute pump gas, we have this engine producing 195 horses at the wheels. Now this translates to well over 200 horsepower. Our guesstimate is about 215, but on the lower estimate we say it is 205 horsepower. But with intent, and if we decide to really turn things up, the car is very easily capable of going past 250 horsepower all the way to about maybe 270 to 280 horsepower. But that is if we have to put a more premium fuel and if we have to do a lot of changes. But then in order to keep the absolute streetability, to keep things reliable, which is not the engine but the driveline, the brakes and the whole of the rest of the car, because end of the day it's a small hatch and we need to keep the integrity of the car true to its lineage. So the project here is an absolute culmination of what we have learnt over the years. Our Monster Zen project is what kickstarted our full-blown effort into building Zens, and after having built them, driven them hard and explored all possible levels of performance, handling and pushing the engine in naturally aspirated trim is what gives us the confidence to build turbo versions. And this here is our first Restomodded Zen project where we've gone end to end, literally from the front bumper to the rear bumper. We've torn it all apart, put it all together. It took us about a year and a half to put this car together. The car had a lot of flaws. We had to fix them all. So it's a very painstaking, long process, and we thoroughly enjoyed putting the car together. And in the end, being a Zen owner 20 years ago and still racing a Zen today on a small track format, I still love the Zen to every bit possible, and I think this is one of the best pieces of engineering that we put together as a street car. I've thoroughly put a few kilometers on this and thoroughly enjoyed, and I must say it's one of the finest pieces of work to come out of race concepts. Coming to the interior of the Zen, we have kept things absolutely simple. We've retained the stock fabric seat, which I think is period and it looks the part. The entire interior has been cleaned out. It's just brought back to life from whatever it was 20 years ago. A revised gear knob which the owner had installed, and we have now put a flat face OMP steering wheel which is 12.5 inches wide, and just two simple gauges here, which is a boost gauge which is with a custom pod that we did, and there's a similarly sized RPM meter, and there's a shift light, and that's about it. We want to keep the car as clean, clutter free, and give all the focus to the road so you can drive without having to look at too many things. The ECU here is Race Dynamics R200 standalone ECU, which we've wired and we've hooked up and we've tuned. All the parameters have been dialed, and this is a masterpiece by Race Dynamics, which we work very closely with Race Dynamics to develop engine electronics, and the car does all the performance duties, handling injection, ignition, and all the boost parameters are handled by the ECU. So this is a very simple, driver focused, driver oriented interior. And we forgot to mention the custom pedals, which are a bespoke part. Now when we say we are building a street car, we quite literally mean it, because what makes a car really streetable are the attributes of how they perform across the rev range. For example, We are now doing 30 kilometers an hour and we are doing about 1500 RPM and we are in third gear. And the response of the engine is very, very instant. So if I just put the foot down, it just immediately picks up. Now this is something which people think is a misconception on turbocharged engines, because people always attribute to words like turbo lag, and they think that a turbo car is going to be absolutely nothing till about 3,500-4,000 RPM, and then is when it's going to work. But the way we build our turbo engines, whether it's a race car or a street car, we focus absolutely on response. And response is everything, not just the peak numbers. So when we say a car is a street package, what we really mean is the drivability, the effortless attitude of the engine to perform at every RPM range, and the way it can haul in a higher gear from lower speed. Now this is what largely makes a package a thoroughbred street package. Now as you can see, now I'm in fourth gear, I can upshift all the way to fifth, 1500 RPM, and I can put the foot down, and you can see speed was just climbing effortlessly from 50 to 60 to 65 to 70. So it's not like what people think a turbocharged car is. The car in fact has more low down torque than a naturally aspirated version, because the efficiency of the engine is very, very good. This car isn't built for 0 to 100 times, a quarter mile times. But like any fast car, there's always a curiosity to find out. But we're not just going to do that yet, because that's not what this car was built for. But I can confidently say, purely from the numbers, that the car can do 0 to 100 in under 7 seconds, and a quarter mile should be very easily possible in early 14s. Looking at the horsepower numbers and a previous record of what a Zen has done in naturally aspirated trim. So, however, being a motorsport buff, if I'm behind the wheel, I'm surely going to find out what the car feels like. So let's see how this thing goes. Race Concepts is the only outfit in the country that puts primary focus on doing bespoke builds. Right from all the Japanese brands such as Hondas, Suzuki's, Mitsubishi's and the Toyotas, we have created a huge platform of enthusiast cars. Our Honda City SX8 builds are legendary. The Civics, the Accord platform, the Zen, the Esteem, the Baleno, the Cedia, the Supernova, and also the 118NE that we created, and also not to forget the Toyota Etios Turbo. We kickstarted the restomodding culture in India by restoring a car, giving it technical advancements and giving it real-world engine performance. Straight derived out of our motorsport expertise, we started giving cars full-blown dynamics, braking performance, chassis performance, and giving it hardcore powertrain to make proper enthusiastic driver-focused cars. Today, all the builds that we have done reflect our passion towards building cars and our philosophy towards race on Sunday and sell on Monday. To motivate us further and to keep this going, follow us, subscribe, continue to share the love so that we can come up with more and more builds such as this. This is Joel Joseph signing off. See you guys.